All right, everyone, back with another episode of Faith in Home Buying, where I like equipping people of faith for the home buying process. And, this week, I had the opportunity to, and I just need to congratulate one of my viewers and their family, no viewers, we have viewers and also listeners. And I have to congratulate them on closing on their home. Yay! It was a little bit of a rent back situation. And I'm going to get into kind of what rent back situations are, but they were ultimately they had to wait a little bit after the close of escrow to finally move into the home because they were giving time and space for the other family to move out. So we didn't just get it right when the recording had happened. But it was a great story. I'll probably be speaking about it at some point or actually having them on next week. So please tune in for that. But congratulations, Casey family. I'm extremely excited for you and for this next chapter of your life. That being said, rent backs. I'm going to talk about it because I have been tested to the nth degree when it comes to rent back situations. And what a rent back situation is, it's during the time of the transaction. Okay, you have your normal transaction. It takes maybe about 21 to 30 days, and then you close escrow, meaning the keys are handed over to the new family. Well, sometimes as an incentive, what you can do as a buyer is say, okay, Mr. Seller, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we'll give you 30 days or 45 days, or you can't go really past 60 days, right? To stay inside the house, whether it's free or whether it's a cost associated to it. It just adds a little bit of security and comfort in knowing that they don't have to move right away, especially if they've been living in the house for a long time. It's just a good incentive if you don't want to increase your price point. But it just allows the family to be comfortable. Believe me, that does have a price tag to it. So in this situation, I've been tested to the nth degree, and I found certain ways, and again, I've been doing this since 2004, but I found certain ways to navigate this situation, which I'm going to go into on the second half. But I do want to talk about the first half. When I say I've been tested, like one of the things that we spoke about with our devotional or is kind of our Vibe Girl devotional was talking about fruit of the Spirit. And different parts of fruits of the Spirit were into Galatians 5, and gosh, it was a really great reminder, even as this was happening and as I was being tested, as an agent, as a Christian, as a person, as an overall advocate for my client, just being tested. I came across a situation where we had a rent back. It was about 45 days, free, as a matter of fact, and tested on the level of patience. Some of when we talk about Galatians, and if you know anything about Galatians and what the fruit of the Spirit that's produced by the Holy Spirit that lives within you, right, is joy that overflows, peace that subdues, patience that endures, kindness in action, a life full of virtue, faith that prevails, gentleness of heart, and the strength of spirit. Basically, those are the fruits of the Spirit. And so patience, that was one of the things that was completely tested. And I say in the last two weeks or so, from one particular transaction. And, I was about to go put a bow on a door for my client. I was about to meet her in about 30, 45 minutes. It's what I do. It's what I love to do. This is the happy time, right? And I go in and I see that the home, when you open the drawers, because I was looking for the garage door opener, and I opened the drawers and just happened to notice, like, whoa, there's garlic, cloves inside the drawers, and then other little junk and pieces and stuff that really should have been cleaned out. Okay. Look inside of another drawer, look inside of another cabinet, and there's stuff in there. It's sticky stuff. It's old food. It's just personal items that are not supposed to be there. So at this point, I'm not feeling good. about the situation because I had to hand over my keys, to my client at this time. And I want it to be an enjoyable experience for them, not for them to be handed something like this, something that the seller should have actually taken care of, because per contract, the room has to be not professionally clean, but at least broom swept, meaning all your personal items gone. And it wasn't just in the kitchen, it was in the laundry room. There was stuff, there was in the bathroom, it was in the hallway cabinets. I mean, everything was there. It's like they just did not care to move anything, or just to take things out of the cabinets. um, so where I said my patience was tested, I was on the phone with the listing agent, and I had said some choice words, and my patience was absolutely thin at that point. And as I'm opening up the refrigerator, I you know I just kind of lost it. I can't believe that someone would think that this was okay to leave their house in this position in order to give to a first-time home buyer at that, and just to say, here, thanks for the 345-day rent back, but I'm leaving the house in a little bit of a disarray. Not even a little bit, a lot. So that being said, I just kind of felt a little bit bad, not necessarily bad about just the situation, but bad about how I had reacted. And could I have reacted a little bit better, taken a breath? I probably could have. I think at that point I was more concerned with wanting to make sure that this experience was enjoyable for my client. That when I handed over keys, it was a great experience, and all she had to do was just come in. If she wanted to clean up, she could. But it was something that was enjoyable. She didn't have to think twice about things, and that's how I always go into my my listings, my closings, and this is why I celebrate at the end. Just the Red Bow Magic kind of stuff. I love that. And this was pretty much tested. So, and what I'm also going to talk about on the next in the next segment is some of the things that you can do, avoid, and understand when it comes to rent back situations, and how you can leverage those. And I'm going to talk about the practical aspect. But to finish out my story, what ended up happening is I had told the agent that I will bring someone in to clean. Number one, clean the home, and also to haul the trash. Because when my client came, obviously I didn't have enough time to clean it, but I told her, please don't open up anything. I'm going to bring someone there so that they can come and clean it, and you don't have to worry about it. And so ultimately, that's what ended up happening. Great, Patricia Cleaners, thank you so much. You came through again on the clutch in order to help me in a situation. She's helped me before in this type of situation, so I'm really, really thankful. But Patricia, thank you. She came in, cleaned up everything, but there was still trash that needed to be hauled. And so that's another thing that had to be paid for, unfortunately, by the seller. And so usually during this time, there's what's called a deposit that's held in escrow. And so, I had to pay for the cleaning, and I had to pay for the hauling of the removal of the trash and personal items. And the seller wasn't too happy to hear that at all. But what are you supposed to do? And again, I'll talk about that later on. But if you leave a home a certain way and it's a rent back situation, you have a deposit, it has to be taken out of the deposit in order to rectify the situation. And it's legal and it's by law that you're supposed to do that. So even though they weren't happy with it, that was one of the things I had to do in order to protect my own client and to make sure that she had peace of mind of knowing that she just didn't get handed something that was a mess and then had to deal with that bill on her own. No, you don't have to do that. And you don't have to, it is not okay. So just in those situations, patience is one thing, but it also is, I think just in those times of frustration, which we all have them, in those times of frustrations, I apologized, to the agent and said that, okay, I was right in the moment. Just kind of caught me off guard. I was not expecting to come into a mess. But, I know that, at least for myself, some of the parts of the fruits of the spirit is patience was one, but it's also self-control. And, although I didn't necessarily curse them out, but I did say some choice words when I opened up the refrigerator and saw that there was still food stuff inside the refrigerator. So hopefully my story, can hopefully, I just encourage someone to know that, hey, even if you've been at your job for over 18 years, and there's all types of things that come up that are completely stressful, especially in my industry, just know that, hey, I'm there with you when it comes to having to really buckle down and say, okay, God, I need your grace for this day. And I don't even think that I asked for that on that day, to be honest with you. But needing grace for that day, just to make sure that my words and how I carry myself and who I am is a great representation of Christ, is a great representation of who I know that I am as a person and as a human being. But hey, I'm fight for my clients and to make sure that their peace is maintained as well. And that's sometimes, that's a little bit of a fault of mine. Like I really want to make sure that the experience is good. And in no way do I want outside forces to mess with a great transaction. That being said, let's talk about what a great transaction is. And then we're going to talk about that in the next segment, and talking about some of the pitfalls and some of the ways that you can go about making sure, little tips on a rent back situation, that you're not getting handed something that is going to cost you in the end. So if you want to hear about something like that, and hopefully get some strategies on when you write your next offers, stay tuned. So this is Tamika Ellsworth with Faith in Home Buying, and I'm equipping people of faith for the home buying process. Stand by. All right, so back to story time / getting practical on rent back. So long story short, in the end, from my first story, things ended up working out. My client was able to get into her home. She's now changed the carpets, did everything that she needed to do. She's happy. That is the ultimate situation. But let's talk about this. So rent backs, some people like them, some people hate them. I think they're a good leverage for a buyer coming through. And what's typical, not really, the industry standard, but what's typical is offering like a 30-day rent back. So, and why 30 days? So in 30 days, like when you close on your loan, you don't have to pay your mortgage payment until another 30 days after. So it's kind of like a little bit of a buffer, kind of coming from like if you were renting, into your home. So they do that on purpose. So during that 30 days, you're not paying a mortgage per se. So a lot of people are just like, well, I'm not paying a mortgage in that month. And, price point wise, they need a little bit of help, as far as the seller. We'll do this to add and make our offer a little bit better, stand out above another one. And it usually does work, because, who wants to give up not having to pay a mortgage or rent, when they're about to be moving their home, if they have some extra time instead of a place to save some money, right? So usually what's called a SIP is the seller in place. That's about 29 days. So when you go past 29 days, then it's considered a kind of a lease after sale. Most people call it a lease back too. But when you do that, you become more of a tenant landlord situation. That's what most people want to try to stay away from. So the 29 days with a SIP or seller in place form is a little bit more kind of cut and dry. Like you or the seller are staying in the house, and I'm granting you this time because it's 29 days. But when you go past the 29 days and go to 30 days, then it becomes more like a tenant landlord situation, because you're staying inside the house for longer than 29 days. And it's a different form. It's called a RLAS, which is a residential lease after sale lease agreement. So it's just like your typical lease agreement that you would have when renting. And when you get to the point of either one of those, you do have what you have, like, when you come into the house and you have you walk through the house and to, make sure that, the house is relatively the same. So you still have your typical walkthrough that you would do 5 days before close of escrow. Regular sell, no rent back. 5 days before close of escrow, there's a walkthrough that you do. Make sure the house is relatively the same as it was when you first got into contract. But the thing about a walkthrough, and you have a rent back situation, no matter how long it is, 2 weeks, a month, or 60 days, it doesn't matter, because people's stuff is still inside the house. So you really can't see a whole lot of things. So I typically do more of my final verification kind of at the end, where I know that most of the things that I can see the flooring, I can see the walls, I can see everything, right? This when you do your inspections on, homes. So when you do your walkthrough, at the end, there are some things that you're entitled to, kind of say to Mr. Seller, like, hey, if things aren't right, you do have some options to do. So, for instance, if there is a walkthrough on a regular sale, say it's a 30-day escrow, you're doing a walkthrough within 5 days before you close, and then you see, wait, there's, and this has happened to me. I'm going to give you an example. But then you see that there are a lot of personal items, not just even in the cupboards, but there are so many different personal items that are in the home, like the person just kind of packed up their stuff and just walked out the door and didn't want to clean anything. Not good. So in that situation, if it's a regular sell, no rent back, I had to go in and I had to tell the agent, like, hey, there's still personal items still left in the house, and there's no way that I can give keys over to my clients. And we were supposed to close like the next day. And now, granted, you go through a pretty much a 3-day process, right? At the end, it's usually your, you sign your loan documents. Yay, we're getting closer. Second day is funding. So like the old mortgage is paid off. And the third day, keys are handed over and the county has recorded. So in that process, and it's not as a contingency of the sale, when this happened, I said, no, we cannot close escrow, and, sent out an email to the title company and said, no, this home is in disarray. Show the pictures, show everything in the final verification of property condition. And I said, this is not going to fly. And so the agent had to hurry up and get people over there in order to clean it up. I think he even did it himself, in order to make sure that we can actually close on time, because I held up escrow and funding, because that was just not okay. I was not going to leave my clients in this situation. We were just going to have to be delayed, and he didn't want that. And so he did end up getting it taken care of. So that was situation one, which is like a regular sell. Now, another type of situation that I kind of talked about in the beginning segment was during a rent back situation, and no matter how long it is, and then you go in. Now, there's a deposit that's usually kept in, and you got to make sure your agent does this, but there's usually a deposit that's kept from the seller's proceeds in escrow. Okay, so it could be usually like $1,000 is kind of typical, 1,500, sometimes even 3,000. It just depends. But that's being held in escrow. And when that's being held in escrow, that's kind of saying, hey, if there's anything that's going wrong with this home, it's going to be used from your deposit in order to rectify the situation. So I had a situation where we did have a rent back period, and a window became broke. And the window was broke. So guess what? We had to go in, and the seller had to go in and had to fix the window. And using it from their proceeds, they just kind of left a deposit. They left the amount of money that it would take in order to fix the window being broken. That's one of the things sometimes you have to do. And so that was able to, kind of rectify the situation, bring my client whole, and they continue to move on and got the window fixed. Everything was fine. Even the situation that I had just described, if there's cleanup that needs to happen, things that needs to go through, and your agent really didn't tell you that you need to have these things done, well, it's going to come from the pocketbook. And if the other agent on the other end is doing the right thing and looking out for their client, yeah, it won't feel good. But it definitely is something that you can do, and you do have recourse as a buyer. And I think I've heard I did a TikTok on this before, and yeah, it was bad before, and this was a regular sale. They're supposed to be out, and they had everything still in there. Now, granted, gave a little bit of grace, but I had to call the agent. Like, no, you can't leave all this stuff inside of here and just say, okay, here are the keys. Thank you. It doesn't work like that. We will not close, and you know, everything. Everybody came together to get the job done and make it right. And I think that's just the biggest thing, for me in the testing of just like in my industry is the testing of integrity. And it's like, if you wouldn't do it, or if you wouldn't want it done to you, don't do it to someone else, and I think it's just important that buyers know that. And I've heard stories of buyers telling me that their agents have left them with a mess and they had to get it and clean it themselves. There are safety nets to this, and hopefully what I've just talked about, that it kind of sparks something, like if you do go into a rent back situation, just to make sure that X, Y, and Z are covered. Or you mentioned, hey, what about if the home is not clean, or what about if something is broken that wasn't broken before. Ask those questions so that so your agent knows that you understand that in this situation that these things may happen, and how am I being covered in those situations. And you should bring those questions up. You should ask them. So hopefully those that are in or even thinking about it, if you're listening to me right now, ask your agent, what if they don't clean up at the end? What if something breaks and it wasn't broken before, or it wasn't disclosed on the transfer disclosure statement? Those are things that are real questions. And I've had situations like that happen too with other clients. You could tell that they moved out and they left scratches on the flooring, and and denied it. So my client would do what they needed to do legally at the end, because it wasn't disclosed, and they then tried to deny that it was something that was done during the closing. But I really hope that just my just my experience can help somebody. And wonderful rent backs, they're great. Don't get me wrong. I love them, and I do think that they do hold some very valuable weight when it comes in a competitive market situation. But do be aware that you don't have people that would probably do what you would do when handing over keys to their homes. Sometimes there's not pride of ownership that comes with people, and their next phases that they're doing in life. And so just rest assured that if you have the right team and the right people looking out for you, it shouldn't cost you. It shouldn't cost you more than it needs to for you to, get keys handed over, and for you to start that next chapter of your life. So I'm hoping that every agent that also is listening as well, that we up our game in making sure that we don't hand our buyers junk, and that we make sure that we advocate for them. But other than that, remember, I can be reached on TikTok, real estate _T, Instagram, Tamika Ellsworth, or you can catch me on my website, TamikaEllsworth.com. My number is 408-561-7922. I can absolutely be reached there. But until then, and until next week, which I have a favorite, one of my favorite families are going to be talking about their journey. Please do tune in for that. I'm super excited for them to share what the Lord has done, and just their whole story. Their whole story is just beautiful. Kids, beautiful, just a beautiful story. So stay tuned for that. But thank you everyone for tuning in. Again, this is Tamika Ellsworth with Faith in Home Buying, equipping people of faith for the home buying process.